Excuse me. We'll start just as soon as I see Bruce Wood arrive and Erica gets back. She was just taking the girls home because we kind of need the accountants and everybody here. So we won't wait until 11:30. Well, as soon as they show up, we'll get started. So be patient. Thank you.
Shouldn't be this hard to walk the path you gave me. Shouldn't be this hard to do the things you've done. Do I have to ask for you to come and save me? Is my faith enough to know that you're the one? And it's not easy to live this life. I don't walk alone. I know that you are with me. But sometimes I feel like I'm the only one. Such an easy choice, but so hard in the making, to live my life for the work that you've begun. And it's not easy to live this radical faith. We need radical hope, to use radical love, to make radical justice a radical faith. This is a radical kind of life. This is a radical faith. We need radical hope, to use radical love, to make radical justice a radical faith. This is a radical kind of life. When you walk this earth, you were not popular or proper. You questioned everything and everyone, but yet you stayed out on that road. Were you ever cold and lonely? And did they understand when you told the ones you met that it's not easy to live this radical faith? We need radical hope, to use radical love, to make radical justice a radical faith. This is a radical kind of life. This is a radical faith. We need radical hope, to use radical love, to make radical justice a radical faith. This is a radical kind of life. This is a radical faith. We need radical hope, to use radical love, to make radical justice a radical faith. This is a radical kind of life. This is a radical faith. We need radical hope, to use radical love, to make radical justice a radical faith. This is a radical kind of life. And it's not easy.
All right. Yep. You guys ready to go at the back corner? Yeah, okay. I think what we'll do is, because Bruce was under the impression this was going to start at 11:30 and we're ahead of schedule, and I'm sure we have lots of things to do, so I think we'll get started, and then whenever Bruce comes, we'll kind of interrupt our agenda and let Bruce do his thing. Before I call the meeting to order, there's a couple of things I wanted to just call it announcements. First, it's nice to see the top half of everybody here. That's great. Wanted to thank, before we started, sort of an extra thanks out to the staff. It's been a hard couple of years. The staff has had to pick up a lot of the slack where the volunteer committees typically do work. It's been an extra burden on them, and 3 thumbs up for all the work they did to kind of keep this place rolling along quite well without the support they typically get. So I want to give them a hand. And I want to welcome Julie Melanson, who is trying to fill Wendy Marnie's very large shoes. And she's coming up to speed very, very quickly. Wendy is always going to be around to help, but welcome. And everybody kind of introduce themselves to Julie and so on. Yeah, and I was remiss. I should have said Wendy and Sue. Sue is very quietly in the background doing all of these things all the time, and sometimes I forget about her. Bad on me, because we couldn't survive without her too. And also too, as we try to get back to some new normal, whatever it's going to look like, and I'm not sure even God knows for certain what it's going to look like, we are trying to rebuild our volunteer committees. They've all pretty well gone flat. The COVID committee has done outstanding work for the last couple of years, keeping us safe and happy and making things as normal as they can. Emily has kind of get the worship committee built back up and going again. But most of the committees they're meeting some, but everybody needs help. What we're going to have in the fall, COVID willing, is probably our first or second Sunday back in September. We're going to have a volunteer fair, for the lack of a better word. We'll get it organized such that you'll be able to go in and kind of talk to people who look after some of the committees. We're kind of kicking around the idea of having maybe a slightly different version where if you want to help out in an event, you can help out. You don't necessarily have to attend 9 committee meetings as a result. As the world goes on, volunteers are slimmer on the ground, and we have to make better use of what we got. So we're going to be talking around that more, but put your thoughts in if there's something that you would like to know more about, or if you say, yeah, I can do that. I can help out that week or that month, but I don't want to be on the committee. That's going to be fine going forward. So we're going to be kind of relooking at things, but just to kind of have that in your head, I thought this was a good time to do it. And for all those viewers at home, I'm talking to you too. So with that, I'll call the meeting to order at 11:16. By the way, the governance committee needs a secretary because I'm up here doing the secretary too. So, and I'll ask you when we get to making motions and stuff, help me out since I know all the faces. I don't necessarily know all the names. I'm not as good as names as I used to be, and I'm only seeing the top half of your head. So if someone's making a motion, holler out their name so I can get that too. Oh, sorry. Oh, yes. Also use the microphone, please. That'll help as well. And it'll also record things, I think, as too.
Yes, we would prefer for you to use the microphone, speaking as the chair of the COVID committee, because shouting out just spreads more germs.
There you go. Thank you very much. That little commercial announcement from the COVID committee. All right, so we're going to start this right out. We need an adoption of the agenda. So that's the very first thing that. So who hollered that out? Oh, Scott. Yeah. Who have I got for a seconder? Alicia. Okay, on the question, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, motion carried. The agenda is adopted. Steve, I'll ask you to do the prayer and remembrances.
Let us pray. Loving God, you call us together to celebrate the work of your church in this place. These have been difficult years because of the pandemic. We've not been able to come fully together since March of 2020, yet throughout this time you have been with us. You have strengthened us, encouraged us, and held us lovingly in the palm of your hand. Accept our thanksgivings and laments for all we have faced over the past months. We remember as we gather those connected to our faith community who are no longer in our midst, but whom we trust are now at peace. and are within your holy and loving presence. Jim DeWolf, Ken Evans, Bryce Butler, Barb Swinimer, Eleanor and Jack Truman, Shirley Margson, Peter Warren, Reverend Dr. Yvette Swan, Ron Davis, Harriet McCulloch, Sharon Giggy, Darrell Murray, John Cameron, Glenn Cook, Muriel Mills, Reed Steves, Robin Nettles, Bob Prime, Shirley Clark, Bob Dunham, Katrine Robinson, Elwyn Henwood, Jim Godfrey, Miles Way, Rose McLeod, Royce Monteith, and in this year, Muriel Pooley, Peter Crossman, Daryl and Shirley Kirkpatrick, Dave Rose, Carol Mayer, Jim and Leola Dowling, Lois Hale, Clarine White, Lois Spearin, and David McDonald. Thank you for the gifts of faith and service shared with us by their company. Continue to comfort and support their loved ones and inspire them with your eternal and blessed hope as we know it in Jesus Christ. As we gather to be about the business of our annual meeting, open us to your presence. Give us friendship with one another so that we might be sensitive to the emotions and ideas held and expressed. Strengthen us to say the things that need to be said and the wisdom to keep silent when words are not needed. Enable us to grow as part of the body of Christ in Riverview and in the United Church of Canada. Give us the foresight to look to another year with a sense of purpose and renewed commitment. May your word be heard, and may your presence be felt and respected in this time and place. Amen.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, for voting entitlement, you can see on the screens, we'll need a motion that voting privileges be extended to all members and adherents as per section B37 of the United Church Manual. I have someone that'll move this. And second, back Bob Childs. On the question, all in favor, well, wave your hand. At least we won't yell out. Okay. Contrary minded, if any, motion carried. Next, we'll have the adoption of the minutes of the annual congregational meeting of November 21st. This one here is a little closer to when we should be. So I'll need a mover to adopt the minutes of that. Art Robson, seconder. Don't be shy. Mr. Pickles. On the question, all in favor signify by waving your hand. Contrary minded, if any. Motion carried. We'll skip over the auditor's report for a moment, but we can do the adoption of the 2021 annual reports as per the package that went out. So I'll ask for a motion to adopt the 2021 annual reports. Second. On the question, all in favor signify by waving your hand. Contrary-minded, if any. Motion carried. Bruce is not here. Okay. Erica, do you want to come up and do the budget? The budget?
Hey, guys. Can you hear me? Yes? Okay. Oh, that is a little budget. Well, yeah, it's a good thing you all have printed copies of this because I don't think you'd see that. You'll see in the budget, I've got a lot of columns here. I've been sort of keeping multiple years just because it's been so unusual with COVID. So the first 4 columns are the budget for 2022 to 2019, and then the 3 further columns on the right are the actual for 2021, 2020, and 2019. So the top number, the total givings, is really just a plug to make the budget balance. And one thing that you'll notice this year is that there's no more a budget line item for capital, and that's because the mortgage is paid off now, so we don't need to budget for that, which is great. Another big difference since the pre-COVID budget is that there's a lot less budgeted for fundraising and that sort of stuff, just because there's been a lot less going on the last 2 years. But hopefully there'll be a little bit more of that in 2022. A couple other things to note on the revenue side. There's no budget this year for payroll subsidies because those are mostly done now. It's possible we might still qualify for a couple periods, but it won't be as significant. Last year we had gotten about 35,000. That was our budget, and the actual was right or just under that, actually, at 34,000. You'll also notice that there's no budget for loan forgiveness. Because that was it was called the CEBA loan, and basically there was a portion of it that was forgivable, so there's no more of that this year either. In last year, the forgivable portion was 10,000. So overall this year we're budgeting for total revenues of 386,000, which is in line with the total revenues from 2021, which is good. On the expense side, just a few things to note. The administration budget is up a bit from what we had budgeted in previous years, and this is because we're planning to do some work to update the website, and also just with the transition from Wendy to Julie, we're also looking at potentially upgrading the accounting software, so we've got a bit of budget in there for that. One other item that you'll note on the expense side is that we don't have any budget for the loan repayments because the mortgage is paid off, and that's yeah. And that's very significant because that's $45,000 a year, so very exciting to have that behind us. You'll also notice a line item this year, which is consistent with 2021, that we added for ministerial transition, and this is basically just for Steve to use at his discretion as needed to help him with the transition, where we just have the one minister at the moment, and there's so much transition with the office staff as well. On the salary side, obviously, because we've just got one minister, the salaries would have been down, but we did put in a placeholder just in case we do get someone in place before the end of the year. So there's a little bit of a cushion built in, but it'll definitely come in at lower than the 2021 levels. And the last item that I wanted to mention was just with regards to the worship budget, which is pre-COVID, it was around $7,500 a year, but there was quite a bit more budgeted last year because we were doing so many upgrades for the live service, the live streaming, and all the support for that. So for this year, we've got a few things lined up as well, some more equipment upgrades, and just some fees around musicians and supply in the event that Steve is not able to do the service. So those are really the highlights of the budget for this year. Does anyone have any questions? No? Okay. Are you going to make a motion? Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. Erica's put a ton of work in for us in the last couple of years, kind of getting things going along and straightened up, and I think that was probably the only hours she actually had to sleep. So we appreciate you not sleeping for the last couple of years and going along with this. Okay, I will ask for a motion to approve the 2021 budget report. And the 2022 budget. There, I'll get it out. I'll spit it out eventually. Ian? Okay. And seconder? Art. Question, all in favor signify by waving your hands. Contrary minded, if any. Good, motion carried. Just want to mention too, just a little paid service announcement here, that although we no longer have to pay a mortgage, that doesn't necessarily make us awash in cash. We've got an old building here, and the maintenance has been underfunded for years just because we couldn't do anything about it. We've kept her together and what have you, but even small things in a big building like this, for example, we have to do some work on one of the heat pumps. And we sort of think, wow, they're brand new, but they're not. They're 17 years old. So, you know, it's $4,500, is it, Steve? Something like that, for give or take, for a part for the heat pump. So when things break, they break in big dollars. So we're hoping that people will continue to have their givings, and I'm talking to you at home as well, to help with that, because we sometimes we're fixing things on a bit of a wing and a prayer financially. So if we were able to transfer that $45,000 mortgage payment over into our maintenance budget, that would be wonderful, because a building this big needs more. And it's not, like all of us, it's not getting any younger. So I won't harp on that anymore. Okay. Hope Bruce shows up pretty soon, or he's going to be talking to an empty room. Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, okay. Fine. Well, then we'll go back. I guess, do we do the auditor's report? Is that where you want to? Okay. Does Erica want to come up and speak to it? Okay.
I'm back. I might need that glass of water after all. Now, I'll apologize in advance. I wasn't really planning to go through the statements, so I don't have all of the details on the variances, but I can probably hit the high points. Less detail is probably appreciated. So as far as the audit report itself, it's an unqualified audit report this year, which is what we're looking for, consistent to previous years. If you go to the third page, I don't know if you've got there's a little package that's just the financials, and then there's also the last few pages in the annual report are also the statements. This one, it's called the Statement of Financial Position. Now, this statement here, this is basically as of a point in time, so this is in profit-oriented entities, we'd call this the balance sheet. At the end of 2021, there was 32,000 of cash, which is down quite a bit from 2020. And the main reason for that is that we put quite a bit into the investments during the year. So you'll notice the line right below it, the investments are up from 299 up to 442. So we had put, I think, around 70,000 in there during the year. So that's a big piece of it. And the other thing, in previous years, we had been pulling out money each month from the Austin Fund to help with cash flows, and we stopped doing that in early 2021. So that's another big reason why the cash balance is a little bit lower. And really, that's the goal, because your cash isn't making any money, the investments are. So we want to keep that as low as is comfortable to fund operations. HST and other receivables are up quite a bit this year, 35 versus 9,800 last year. And the big thing that's in there is the forgiveness on the loan. So technically it wasn't forgiven until the new year. And this was, I don't have all the details on this, but basically because we had never missed a payment, we got forgiveness at the end of the loan, so we didn't have to pay off that last 22,500. So at the end of the year, we've got it shown as that portion as receivable, and then we also have the liability there. So really, it's a wash. Let me just see here. I'll finish up this statement, and then I'll hand it over to Bruce. That's pretty much the only thing that I wanted to mention there. As you see, the current portion of debt is the 22.5, which is the forgiven portion. And then we've got the long-term debt, which is just the CEBA loan, which is due to be paid off by the end of 2023. And that was the piece from the government. They had given us 60,000, and 20 of it was forgivable. So basically, as long as we pay the 40 back by then, we don't have to pay back the other 20. And with that, I'll hand it over to Bruce.
We've got a head start, Bruce. It was, but Steve was quick this morning, so he finished at 11, so we kind of got started.
Good morning. I just want to touch on, I'll cover the auditor's report, which is on the page 1 of 12 and 2 of 12. It's addressed to the members of St. Paul's United Church. In the opening 2 paragraphs, we express our opinion. We start off by saying that we have audited the financial statements of St. Paul's United Church, which comprise the statement of financial position as at December 31st, 2021, and the statements of operations and changes in net assets and cash flow. In our opinion, the accompanying financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of St. Paul's United Church as at December 31st, its results of operations, changes in net assets and cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with Canadian accounting standards for not-for-profit organizations. We conducted our audit in accordance with Canadian generally accepted auditing standards. We are independent of the organization in accordance with the ethical requirements that are relevant to our audit. We believe that the audit evidence we have obtained is sufficient and appropriate to provide the basis for our opinion. And then the auditor's report goes on with the sections of responsibilities of management and those charged with governance and the responsibilities of the auditor. And subject to your approval, we will be signing that report as of this date. Erica has already touched on the statement of financial position and the statement of cash flow, or statement of revenue and expenditure, so I won't spend a lot of time on that. Suffice to say, I might be able to add a couple things. Under the revenue, the church envelope givings. In the capital assets funds, they were $37,258 for 2021. The comparative figure for, although you don't have it there, for 2020 was $37,369. So a very small change in the capital assets fund. Under the operating fund, the givings for 2021 were $215,356. The comparative number for the previous year was $235,983. So that was down for the current year. The overall excess of revenue over expenditures for the year was $116,591. Now keep in mind that includes an unrealized gain on the investments of $70,483, but still on the positive side. In the statement of changes in net assets on page 5, I'll just draw your attention to the operating fund. There's a restricted column there. That was money that was set aside for the audiovisual equipment in this room. Of that, $12,899 was spent on new equipment this year, leaving a balance of $2,101. On page 6 of 12, we have the statement of cash flows. The first category is operations, and you saw a moment ago that the excessive deficiency over revenues on the statement of revenue and expenditures was $116,591 in total. But on a cash basis, the excessive revenues over expenditures is $14,182. Now that's knocking out things that don't involve cash, like the unrealized gain on investments of $70,483, plus the $22,500 that's been set up as receivables for the interest rebate from the iChurch. The investments were, there was proceeds of sale of $2,500, and there was purchase of investments of $75,050, which includes $50,000, which was cash moved over to the investment account, plus the remainder was reinvested income in the Marion Austin Fund. Under the financing section, we had a reduction in the long-term debt, $45,939. We also moved money from the operating fund to $48,871, which is primarily the $50,000 that went into the Marion Austin Fund. Overall, the cash at the end of the year was $32,293. And then we have the notes to the financial statements. I'll just switch to page 8 of 12, note number 2, the investments. Mutual funds at cost were $338,721 compared to $266,17, reflecting again the cash invested and the reinvested income invested. The unrealized gain has grown from $33,560 to $104,43. Total mutual funds at market $442,764. On the following page, you have long-term debt. As you can see, the current portion of the mortgage is $22,500, and I would imagine as of this date, that's been fully eliminated with the interest rebate from the United Church of Canada. On page 10 of 12, we have the note number 7. I won't spend any time. It's the various trust funds that the church administers, and there's been very little change in those. Note number 8, we keep that note in there because we believe that the church has and will continue to be negatively impacted by the COVID-19 situation. And on page 12 of 12, you have the schedule of expenses. Total expenses, including mission and service, $387,209 compared to $366,230. Notable highlights, salaries and allowances, $214 a year ago, $198,351 this year, largely due to Andy's departure at the end of September. That would have been a reduction of $15,000. The worship expenses, the $26,734 compared to $6,498. The larger areas in this one are the online service, which was provided before the equipment was functioning. That was $16,000, and the supply organist was $6,500. Heat, light, and power, although it's not a big change, it is down. And you remember the energy refit that was done 2 years ago or 3 years ago? I think you're starting to see the effect of that, because electricity would probably have been up. And minor equipment, we just separated since there were a few items in there, we separated the cost as a separate item. Notably, that was the $12,899 for the audiovisual equipment, plus a new dishwasher in the kitchen and a new fridge in the kitchen. And with that, those are your audited financial statements in draft.
Any questions for Bruce at all? No? Thank you, Bruce. Okay, I will need a motion to receive and accept the auditor's report for 2021. Okay. Sorry, okay. Yep. And second, Erica? On the question, all in favor, wave your hand. Contrary-minded, if any, motion carried. Thank you. So I'll need a motion, our M&S goal for 2020. I think that's supposed to be, it says 2020, it's supposed to be 2022. That's my typo. Set at 25.5. That's recommended, is it, Steve?
That's actually the same numbers we've had in the last couple of years. And one of the things that most congregation members wouldn't be aware of is that you'll see the allotment from the United Church being up this past year in the budget. And that's because they've changed how we're financing some of the things at the national church level. And so much of the staff where M&S budget would have gone to in the past is now being handled through the allocations that congregations would pay. So even though it's set at 25.5, which is not a change, it is an effective increase in terms of the amount of money that we're providing directly for the mission work of the church.
Okay, good. Thank you for that extra explanation. So I need a motion to approve that the M&S be set for at 25.5. McLeod's. Seconder? Gail? Okay. I know you, so even with your mask on. Yeah. All right, on the question, all in favor signify by waving your hands. Contrary-minded, if any. Motion carried. We only have one little item in new business, and Zelda gave a pretty good report in your report, but I'll provide maybe just a little update since it's a hot topic. So we've been working away, put a fair amount of hours into this, and we're almost ready to complete our report. One of the things we were waiting on was to finalize documents today for finances. Zelda is putting the final polish on it, I think, before she goes away. It has to go to Steve. It has to go to Audrey Lauder, who is helping us out from Shining Waters, whatever they call themselves now instead of Presbytery. And then it goes off from there. Once it's approved, I think then it goes to the, Steve can nod as if I'm saying this, it goes off to the church then to be put on the hub, which is where other ministers will see it. It's kind of like Kijiji for ministers. They're looking for work. Is the best way I can put it. Yeah, so it goes on. So anyway, we are moving along and we're getting awful close. Fair warning, we have to set up an actual search committee. This is done different from the old days. So we will be needing a search committee who will be the ones that will actually be dealing with applications from prospective ministers. So we will be looking because we're going to need a few people for that committee. But rest assured that things are moving along. It was, I had done a JNAC 100 years ago when Steve came. I was on that committee, and it was different. It was a lot harder. Basically, the report we put together is almost like a snapshot of the church and our church community. And it would have been an awful lot easier if we could have had meetings together face-to-face in small groups and all of that stuff. We ended up having to do a survey, which went out to those that could online. Some went out as paper copies. Some were picked up here. I believe Emily's not here, but I think we got about 90 responses back in total, which we were pleased with. We felt that was enough to give a pretty good cross-section, and it was age-wise a pretty good cross-section too, so we felt that it captured St. Paul's. We sort of feel that, we might be tooting our own horn, but we kind of feel that this is a congregation that other ministers will probably be interested in coming to now that COVID is over and people aren't afraid to move. Pretty nice place to live. Up until 2 years ago, a pretty cheap place to live. It's gotten a little crazy the last couple of years, but compared to Toronto or Vancouver, it's still real cheap. Our congregation is still very good. We're financially sound. We're kind of got all our ducks in a row. We've got some, once our committees come back up, we've got some good committees. We're doing a lot of good work. So I think we put out a pretty positive picture. So knock on wood somewhere, we're hoping that this will go along and we won't have a problem. But I don't know if anyone's got any questions. I can try to answer. I'm not the chair. Carla and Zelda are the chairs, but I've been to most of the meetings, so I might be able to answer your question if you have any. But we're chugging along anyway. And if not, and if there is no other business to be brought forward, I will call for a motion to adjourn. Don't be shy. Erica. Perfect. It's a wrap. We're done. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you, Bruce. Yeah, we've...